Hi, this is David Dusek, senior writer with Golf Week Magazine. Welcome to this week's edition of Ask the Expert, the place where you get to ask me anything you like about golf equipment and what the guys are using out on the PGA Tour. This week's question comes to me via Twitter, and it's from Paul Shabi, and he asks, I'm about to buy some wedges this year. So the question I have is, what should I look into when buying wedges? Paul, the first thing to consider when purchasing new wedges is how many exactly are you looking to get. If you are a 3-wedge player, meaning pitching wedge, sand wedge, lob wedge, you're going to have larger gaps between those wedges than you would be if you were somebody who carried 4 wedges, which is usually a pitching wedge, a gap wedge, a sand wedge, and then a lob wedge. You also need to consider what is the loft of your 9-iron. Now, lofts in irons have gotten stronger and stronger over the last few years, and I looked up online and saw a lot of different 9-irons that are right around 39 degrees, which means if you go up to a 49 or a 48 or a 47 degree pitching wedge, you're going to have a pretty substantial gap between that 9-iron and your pitching wedge. That's the reason why a lot of players are now going with 4 different wedge sets these days, because they want to fill out those gaps. The smaller the gaps, the more often than not, you're going to have a full swing, better shots, more consistency, more versatility. You get the idea. Now, the other thing to consider when you're looking at wedges is going to be bounce. Bounce is something that every player needs to sort of think about in terms of the courses that they play most often. And the rule of thumb is going to be on firmer conditions and in firm sand, you want less bounce. If you play in some place that has fluffy sand and softer conditions, you want to go with more bounce. And when in doubt, go with more bounce. Everybody that's in the wedge game that I've talked with has always told me, pros and amateurs alike, they need to play with more bounce. If you work with a club fitter, depending on exactly the wedges you're looking at, a lot of times you can look at sole grinds that'll allow you to play with more effective bounce. But if they grind out material from the heel and the toe area, you can open up the club and still get the leading edge underneath the ball. It's sort of the benefit of all worlds. So talk with somebody about different sole grinds, different sole configurations based on the different types of playing conditions you play the most often. There's also then, obviously, it comes down to cosmetics. Some people like a silvery sort of a finish or a chrome finish. Some people like a darker finish. Completely up to you. You also usually get slightly heavier shafts in your wedges. I find that it seems to help people to get a little more feel than they do in their iron sets. But again, work with a club fitter. Try out a lot of different clubs. See what works best for you. Hey, if you've got a question you want to ask me, feel free to send me an email at ddusek@golfweek.com or go to Twitter, and it's @golfweek_Dusek. Thanks a lot, and I look forward to seeing you real soon.